Our first focus was, making sure that any skill gaps that existed in the organization were filled. And now we're focusing on leadership and soft skills and that next level part of the program. You made a mistake, that's great. What are you going to do now? What are you going to do different? How are you going to pivot? What did you learn from it? How are you going to not do it again? I'm like, that's more important to me than the mistake itself. If you have nothing defined that you're working towards, your decisions may not even align with one another. They're very all over the place. But if you're working towards a very specific goal, over time, you'll see that the decisions you're making are aligning towards the achievement of that goal. And that's really where the magic happens.
Hello, and welcome, our dear listeners, to my podcast, Love People Technology Learning. And I'm your energetic host, Tamara, CEO of Lanes AI. And I'm thrilled to have Jen Harvala join us today on Love People Technology Learning. Jen is an accomplished leader with over 17 years of experience as a director of operations in the legal industry and currently serves as the chief learning officer at Mike Morris law firm, as well as the senior vice president of operations and business coach at Fireproof. Her experience in leadership development and her insightful perspectives on managing teams are widely respected. And Jen, is an absolute pleasure to have you here today. Welcome to the podcast. Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, for me, it's really true. And I really excited that in LinkedIn, I can connect with the people all over the world, and you one of my unique guests. Yes. And Jen, every episode of my podcast begins with the career journey of my unique guest. And I'd love for you to share your story with us, how you got started in learning and development and how you've grown to become the chief learning officer. Tell us, please.
So I do have kind of a unique journey in the legal space. So when I started with the law firm that I'm at, and it's been about 20 years, I was a licensed cosmetologist. So I had no college, I had no professional experience. I really wanted to get into a professional setting, and by a twist of fate, with a very kind person, I ended up connected to the owner of the firm and did an interview, got hired in as a receptionist, still had not gone to college at this point in my life, and really took to the legal industry. I really found it interesting. It really forced me to use different parts of my brain I had not utilized previously, and I fell in love with it. And I went back and I did my associates in paralegal studies, which at that point, and yes, I know I'm dating myself, but at that point, it was the highest level of education available for a paralegal in Michigan. So we had no bachelor programs. Now there's master's programs here. So I did that. I started working as a practicing paralegal, and over time really just gravitated towards business and management and leadership, and ended up going back in 2018 to finally finish my undergrad. Went right from my undergrad into a master's program. And I kind of focused my undergrad on what was logical for my career progression at that point, which was business. And my master's to me was passion. And my husband was like, pick really what you love. If you're going to go do a graduate program, like really pick something that you love. And I picked training and development.
Why did you choose training and development? Because you told that you love law industry, and you thought that it's really interesting for you. And after that, like training and development, why? Maybe some passion did you have? What did you think about this industry or field?
Yeah, so having a dedicated chief learning officer is really unique in the legal space. And we're one of very few law firms in our practice area that have a person who's dedicated to learning and development initiatives. I had been an individual for years at the firm who was leading and training and, focusing on how can we develop systems and processes to better prepare people for the work that they're doing. And it was a really like natural thing that I always gravitated towards. And I was like, if there's something I'm going to do at the graduate level, I really want it to be focused on learning and development because it's just it has always been a very special thing for me.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I got it. And you've mentioned that's Chief Learning Officer for law industry. It's really unique. And my next question will be about like this as Chief Learning Officer at a law firm. What unique challenges have you encountered in developing leadership programs or some kind of learning programs tailored for legal professionals? And how have you addressed them? Because legal industry, for me, it's really something new. Like, I was thinking how does it work in law industry, because it's really specific. I know a lot about healthcare, banking industry, about like manufacturing companies, like retailing, or like a lot of, but no about law industry, nothing. Yeah, share
Yeah.
please.
Yes. So the law industry has actually been a little bit behind the mark for some time as it relates to training and development. And there's this
Mm-hmm.
very, um, there's this foundation of we bring people in, we want to bring, people in with experience because really we want them to hit the ground running, that phrase.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of come in day one. Here's the pile of stuff that's been waiting for you that we need for you to
Yeah.
execute and start going. And it can be a very challenging industry for people who don't have experience or for people who want to break into the industry because of the training and development curve. And so our firm, I feel super blessed to be a part of this firm for as long as I have because our visionary CEO, my COO, the rest of my leadership team has a very forward thinking and progressive mindset in the legal industry. We've been paperless probably 10 years, if not longer, which is super uncommon. The pandemic really impacted a lot of law firms and a lot of the legal industry because the industry was kind of lagging behind the times. And so it's like everyone was forced into this virtual setting and this paperless setting. And a lot of firms really struggled for the first set of the pandemic. My firm actually went remote a week before our Michigan shutdown because we had the systems and technology in place to just embrace it. So I'm super fortunate that I work for a company that has that forward mindset and it directly relates to their thoughts on learning and development. So we decided after we grew to a certain level and then we decided to be stable. We were like, this is the growth that we want to be at. This is the size company that we want to be at. And then we decided a couple of years ago that we were going to grow again. Mm-hmm. And with growth, you have to be nimble. You have to think outside of the box. You have to change whatever notion you think of status quo. You got to change it if you're going to grow. Mm-hmm. And our COO and COO had a lot of conversations and they really believed that our ability to hire, train, and retain our talent was going to be the most important factor to us being able to grow and double in size. Right. And not a lot of companies think that way, and especially in legal, but they do. And so they know my background, they know my passion for it, and we crafted this position to align with rolling out a learning management system across the entire mm-hmm. enterprise, which is also very rare in the legal space. Like when I talk about the work that we've done, what our LMS looks like, all of our classes, we have a whole curriculum and training program for every role across the entirety of the organization, from reception to senior attorney. People are really surprised because most law firms aren't thinking of learning in this way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so interesting. Thank you for sharing. And in your view, what are the most critical skills that leaders in the legal industry need to develop, and how do you go about instilling these skills in your team? I imagine that the demands of legal work require specific leadership skills, maybe that might offer or from other sectors for like, yeah.
Absolutely. So when we started the program of developing a learning system, we started with a really like a foundational path, right? So what is more skill-based learning? What are the processes and the skills that people need to learn to execute the way we execute? Our firm, we call it our secret sauce. We have a really specific way that we want cases handled and how we want the cases worked up. So we started there first because we had a lot of new hires in the 2 years before we launched this program. So our first focus was, making sure that any skill gaps that existed in the organization were filled. And now we're focusing on leadership and soft skills and that next level part of the program. And I think in the legal industry in particular, we are known for being a little behind the mark as it relates to emotional intelligence skills. And I think that is the one cornerstone that a leader must have is the ability to use all four of the competencies of emotional intelligence very successfully. So we're focusing on micro learnings in relation to it. Our COO actually does a kind of leadership cohort where he meets with current leaders and up and coming leaders and teaches them in small groups, one-on-one. He has I believe it's a 9-part where they meet once a month and they talk through various things. They recommend books, they discuss the books, articles, and then they bring in the practical. So like, what are they experiencing day to day in the workforce and how are they applying the skills that they're learning in real time? And they have really open and transparent discussions about all of that. So we kind of approach it in multiple ways.
Yes, it's a great, and like you mentioned a lot about empathy and emotional intelligence and soft skills and human skills which we need to develop every day. And you are not just chief learning officer, but you are in another hand you are a business coach. And how does it help to you, like to help your team and to your leadership team, work or to create something or to do something, how does it work, this mix? Because it's great mix, honestly. It's a great when you are a business coach, not just facilitator or instructional designer. And
I think what's super unique about our consulting business that the firm also operates, that I also work within, that you mentioned, Fireproof, is we coach specifically law firms. And we have the ability, to really here's what we did that really did not work. Don't do that. Take what did work and apply it. But we get to speak from really kind of being in the trenches with these other law firm owners and leadership teams. So I work in the Mike Morse law firm. I've worked in that firm for, like I said, 20 years. I've served on leadership for the firm for the past 8 years. I manage learning. I also manage our pre-litigation team. So I'm managing people, working through things, dealing with issues daily. And then when I'm going in to coach the law firms that I work with, I get to take I'm such a believer in practical application. So I get to say well, here's an issue I faced this week. Here's how I handled it. Here's how I wish I would have done better. Here's where I think I did a really great job. Because I tend to be a very honest and transparent person. So I'll be here's what I faced, and I really dropped the ball as a leader this week. I'm not happy with how I handled it. So here's my recommendation to you to not do what I did. So I like to just bring it, be really honest with these people. It's not about, I'm not coaching you to talk about how amazing the firm I work with is. Yes, I think we're amazing, but I'm trying to bring a realistic aspect of what we do every day as leaders is really, really hard. And we're human beings. And sometimes as human beings, we do a great job. And sometimes as human beings, we fall down and we scrape our knees and we have to dust ourselves off and get back up and try again the next day.
Yes, yeah, because it's every day we can fall down, but we need to learn something new from this, failures, and we need to go straight, like next step. It's how does we learn. And for leaders, it's not the failure, not just failure. It's like something which we learn from and go, yeah, and
Yeah.
go.
I always tell my teams it's not that you made a mistake. It's not, people sometimes are also, they'll get like really upset, like, oh, I have to leave unexpectedly. This thing happened. I'm like, it's not that this thing happened. It's what you do with it that really matters, right? So, like, you made a mistake. That's great. What are you going to do now? What are you going to do different? How are you going to pivot? What did you learn from it? How are you going to not do it again? I'm like, that's more important to me than the mistake itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so interesting because like for adults, it's so hard. Because for kids, it's really like I have three kids, and it's so simple for them. They have like failure or something, like they stand up and go and try to do something new. I'm a wake surfer, and it was my, I think, third season when I train every summer. I train my skills in wake surfing. And this year my 9 years old son started to do the same training. He loves wake surfing, and he started
Nice.
to do. And it was like really unexpected for me, because I'm trying to do some tricks like over 2 years, because like my brain and my mind works so hard, because I'm afraid the mistake, I'm afraid the pain or something, and I'm waiting for that. But my kiddo, he is 9 years old. For this season, he started to do some tricks like from second, third time, like time trying. And it means like if we try to change our mindset to think about that in another way, like maybe we need to look at the situation from another side, like like a coin has three sides, not just like yeah, like rib. And yeah, it's true. It's about our leaders, it's about the businesses, it's about something about adults, like our decisions and everything.
Yeah, I mean, when we reach the point of being a working professional, and being of the age to be a working professional, we have a lot of history that comes into play as far as how we respond to situations. So we have, environmental biases, we have personal biases, we have historical biases. Everything goes into how we react to people and situations. And our brain really works off of like muscle memory. So if you've got
Hmm.
someone, I'll just make up a situation. If you've had someone in your life who has always responded negatively to you in a certain situation, and someone who is not that person you interact
Hmm.
with, and they say something and it's similar to this negative, your your gut instinct is to kind of like retract a little bit and brace yourself to prepare to receive the negativity because you're assuming that it's coming.
Hmm.
And it doesn't, maybe it's not. Maybe that's not
Yeah.
how they intended the comment, or it's then they say something and you're caught off guard. Or I've seen lots of managers go into meetings with an employee and they assume that the employee is going to be negative or say something. And even how they walk into the space and the body language that they use and the tone that they use is all coming from this place where they're making an assumption and
Hmm.
preparing to receive information in a certain way. And those assumptions can be really damaging in a leadership perspective.
Right. Yes, absolutely right. I agree. Totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, Jen, you often speak about the leadership in your LinkedIn, and I see it, and I read your posts. And like now, I want to talk a little deeper about leadership and about the importance of long-term vision in leadership. Like, can you share some strategies you've implemented to help leaders focus on sustainable growth rather than short-term gains of fears? Because, like, we how does it work? Yeah.
Yeah. So within our firm, and then we translate it into the consultancy as well, we really focus on the importance of developing long-term business goals. So we focus on a 10-year goal, a 3-year goal, and then our 1-year goal. And really the thought process being that they all kind of flow together, right? Your 1 year supports your 3 supports your 10. So every decision that you make is kind of supporting this longer term Mount Everest, that you want to achieve. And within that, I think when you get really into business planning in that way, you then get to really challenge yourself when you're about to make a decision is, am I making this decision from a reactive standpoint, or does this decision actually support longer term goals? Sometimes we have to be honest as leaders that not every decision we make will 100% align with the long-term vision. And sometimes we are in fact forced to make short-term decisions that, the best of the worst decision you can make because we have an immediate problem that we need to solve. But the goal is to always take the step back and talk it through. And I think this is where collaboration and really strong leadership teams thrive. My leadership team, we talk, we collaborate, we bounce ideas off of each other, and we open the door to I like to say, tell me why I'm dumb. Tell me why this is a terrible decision, right? I'm here's my idea. Tell me why it's terrible.
Right.
And we beat it up. And it's not, I don't get defensive about it. I don't get upset about it. But I look to say, challenge me that my decision making isn't fear-based, isn't being reactive, isn't, going to cause more damage than good. Challenge me on it.
Right.
I think that leaders sometimes don't do that enough because there's ego, and with ego, becomes defensive behavior. And if you're not comfortable with the people you work with, I think you're going to be more inclined to make bad decisions because you don't have a solid network of people that you can brainstorm with.
Yeah. Your focus on long-term vision really resonates with me. It's and it's inspiring to hear how you guiding leaders and the teams to think beyond the present. But of course, I have the question about 10 years goals, because our world right now is different, because 10 years old, like I could to think about something in my future through 10 years, but right now is speed so fast, we are so fast, and everything change every day so fast. How do we think about 10 years old goals, because we don't know nothing right now, because AI, technology, crazy world, something happened around. What do you think about 10 years old goals? How does it work? Do we need to to rethinking about 10 years old goals every 1 year, or every yes?
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in, when I'm coaching, I really try to focus on what is in the best interest of the group that I'm coaching. So for some of my groups, they have a super clear vision for the 10 years. They know where they want to be. They see it. And I help them then take what is in their brain and translate it down to a way that really makes sense for them. Not every group that I work with has that same mentality. So I've got some leaders, they're I'm at 3. I can't see past 3. I have a block. I can't do it. And I'm okay, then let's start with 3. But then to your point, I revisit it every year. So both within the firm and with the groups that I coach, every year we sit down and we revisit the 10, we revisit the 3, and then we do a lot of hard work on the 1. And if they want to make changes or corrections, or they're yeah, I thought a year ago that I really cared about this thing.
Right.
And I've had this life experience and now I don't care about this thing. And I'm great, let's take it off the list. And just be transparent and be open, to who you are and what you want to achieve. And at least it gives you it gives you the focus. And I think the
Right.
focus is what's really important. It's like, what are you working towards? Because if
Mm-hmm.
you have nothing defined that you're working towards, all really your decisions may not even align with one another.
Mm-hmm.
They're very all over the place. But if you're working towards a very specific goal, over time you'll see that the decisions you're making are aligning towards the achievement of that goal. And that's really where the magic happens.
Right, absolutely right. I agree. Thank you for your answering.
Yes.
Yes, I agree. Yes, it's absolutely true. And like you have like dual role in operations and learning. How do you ensure that the leadership training programs or learning programs at your firm are aligned with the firm's overall business objectives? Because like it's a complex task, but like one that's crucial for success in learning and development
Yes.
field. Yes, and it's really brilliant when you have a mix about operations and learning and development. Yes, share your thoughts.
I love this question, and I'll tell you why. Truly, so my admin, my right hand, her name's Val. She's amazing. She and I were at a learning and development conference earlier this year,
Mm-hmm.
and I had this aha moment sitting in it. So I'm in a super unique position that I serve on the firm's leadership team. So I'm sitting at the table. I'm part of the discussion of what are the business goals, what are the business objectives, what's the strategy, what is, what are the issues, what are the pros, what are the cons? Like I'm in the mix of all of those discussions. So when I come out of one of our annual strategy or quarterly strategy meetings, I immediately can say, like, okay, how can I take learning and help support this 8 hour conversation that I just had? I came to realize sitting at this learning and development conference that a lot of learning and development individuals don't serve on leadership. They don't sit at the highest level. They're not in the conversation. So they're getting these little pieces of information floating down to them. And let's be honest, a lot of times they're probably not getting the why. They're not getting the full information of the big picture because, of course, the game of telephone can be complicated. People don't always, and not of ill intent, but people don't, as always, do a great job communicating the why to their people. So learning and development is often sitting off on this island and they're
Mm-hmm.
not a part of the big discussion and decision. And so then they're off here trying to work on this initiative that they think will be so cool and so impactful. And then they bring it to leadership, and leadership's like, no, like you missed the mark. Like that's not where we have this other goal over here that we just didn't tell anybody about.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of, I was listening to people talking at this conference in different sections, and I came to very quickly realize, like, I think it's a huge miss to
Right.
not have learning and development sitting at the table
Mm-hmm.
in
Absolutely
some
right.
fashion. Because, like, how can you ask learning and development to support the business when they're not
Yeah.
a part of the business discussion?
Absolutely right. Yeah.
And so I think Val and I had this conversation over dinner. I was like, I feel super blessed and very fortunate. And I have a lot of gratitude that I am sitting at the table because I think it makes our world better. I think it makes our world more achievable that I do understand what the business wants and what the long term vision is. I can't imagine trying to do the learning and development and not having that information.
Yes, absolutely true. And it's really like insightful. I hope so for our listeners too, because like we should be a part of the business, which means we need to sit in a one table. Like always, we need to be like we are not just supportive function. Of course, for some businesses we are like support function who just like, okay, we need like adaptation program or like something for onboarding or like for new leaders or for something. But no, We are not just support. We are business too, because sometimes we cannot measure the value of the learning and development department, but we know that it's true. We are value the big value for the new employees, for the leaders, for their like customer support, like for everything. Because but we need to know, and we need to have a decision, like we need to have responsibility with the business together. Like yes, it's true.
Absolutely.
And you are so lucky that you are you work in a firm where like you can be a part of the business. It's a great case, and like yes, it's true. And like is someone who writes extensively about leadership. I think it's really interesting question for me. Like, what topics do you feel are currently most relevant to the challenges faced by today's leaders, and what which you can see like a consultant, like a business coach, like chief learning officer?
So I think, one of the things I talk about a lot is our youngest generation in the workforce. And it's not, I think a lot of people talk about it and there's this immediate thought of a negative correlation to it. And I think the exact opposite. I think we have a young generation in the workforce that watched their parents and their grandparents live during a time where the mentality was absolute loyalty to the company to their own detriment. And they watched, people work in companies for 20, 30 years and get let go close to retirement, not fully able to cash in, pensions, younger people brought in for a different wage. Like they watched a lot of this happen. And they have this mentality of like, I'm going to work hard for you, but like, I'm not giving you my life, right? Like loyalty is a two-way street. So I'll be loyal to you, but what I need from you is an investment. And I want to know that I matter. I want to know that my work is meaningful, and I want people to invest in me. And I talk to leaders all over the country about this is the reality of our youngest workforce, and they're not wrong. We should be investing in our people. Yeah, they might only be with you 3 years or 5 years based on just the market that we're in right now. Okay. But it doesn't mean that it's wrong to invest in them. And we should always have a focus on investing in our human capital, helping them develop and grow in a way that's meaningful to them. And regardless of what that means for them in the long term with the company. Hopefully that translates to retention and on a very long-term scale. I think that's everyone's goal.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also like, what kind of company do you want to be? And what kind of culture do you want?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I think people really need to think about like times are changing, the world is changing, and you have an opportunity to be a part of it, or I think you're gonna struggle from being able to hire and retain talent.
Right. Yes, absolutely, absolutely true. And like everything what happened, like yes, it's true. And now I heard you, and it's very relevant topics for me too. And like now I'm just thinking, you talked a lot about leadership, about like leaders, about your role like a chief learning officer and in operations. And I have like a personal and professional question: how do you develop your skills in your like chief learning officer line or in leadership line? What do you prefer in learning and development for yourself, like some courses or books or videos, or like I don't know, some special programs for you?
I'm kind of like I'm a sponge type person. So I like just skimming. I like skimming articles. I like looking at books. I like going to conferences. I like being in rooms with other thought leaders. I like to talk to employees at all levels. Like I want to learn what is going on with people. and I want to hear the pulse of the company. I want to hear the pulse of my industry, the pulse of learning and development. That's how my brain works. So my brain gets in a space where I just hear people talking and I'm absorbing what's around me. And then I like to have what my colleagues jokingly refer to as my brain babies. And I'm like, ooh, brain baby, you know, being in a space with people who are just engaging in discussion really helps me think. So I'm kind of an all over the map type person. I don't just gravitate towards one thing. I just really like being in spaces where people are engaged in thoughtful discussion. And then my brain just starts firing.
Yes, I'm the same person because I love to learn something from the people who are really can talk to you and who is ask the questions or answer the questions. It's like this like the same way, and I love it too. Yes, it's really true, and it's really inspiring me to communicate with the people like from all over the world, from the industry, and I learn a lot from like peer to peer. It's my personal line for learning, but like I'm the same like a person who learn a lot from books, articles. I need to be in the industry, and I do a lot of like research from the industry, from the like marketing, but yes, it's true. And Jen, in my second part of podcast, I have always like not just professional questions, but personal questions, because my guests are really unique, and I want to open something like personal for the audience, and I want to
Yeah.
ask you some like not non-professional questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's
Yes,
do it.
and Jen, you've accomplished so much in your career, but what would you say is your biggest passion outside of work? Is there a hobby or interest that brings you joy and balance in your life? Yes, share, please.
Yeah. So, I mean, one, you can see
Yes.
the dog art behind me. So that passion is not well hidden. So yeah, I have three dogs. My husband and I have three dogs. I'm a huge animal lover, as is my husband. We actually live where we live. We're on 17 acres, so we have
Mm-hmm.
tons of wildlife, and we just
Yeah.
love animals in general. But I'm also a runner, and I've been a
Mm-hmm.
runner for gosh, it's 10 years this year. I've done distance
Oh,
running.
wow.
Yeah, I've done two full marathons and five half marathons, and then a handful of 5 and 10 Ks. But running is, for me, I describe it as like meditation. Like it's where I get to sit and I get to reflect, and just the movement helps me decompress. And so for me, it's a form of meditation.
Oh my God. For me, the same. Jen,
Yay!
I'm runner too, and I've been runner over just 3 years, because before, honestly, I hate running. And I started like with my running coach 3 years ago, and in my Instagram account, I told one day that's for me right now running, it's like a meditation. And I did two 10K marathons, like
Great,
one in Dubai this year on January 7th.
great.
Yes, and yes, it's great. And I have my best friend, my school best friend. Like
Mm.
we have friendship over, I think, 25 years. 25, yeah. And we ran together in Dubai, like, yes, hand
Oh,
by hand. And it's really great. It's why like I smiled a lot when I heard, like, yes, you're a runner. And for you, it's like a
yeah.
meditation. And like, yes,
Yeah,
it's
runners
great.
love talking about running. So yeah, we love talking about it.
Yes, and I'm in a running club. I live in Fort Lauderdale, and we have like several running clubs like around the area. And yes, I love to do it with the people who really have a passion about running. Yes, and it's really a
Yeah,
supportive community too.
That's
Yes.
awesome. Yeah, I love running with my dogs. I had a dog. We lost him 2 years ago, but
Mm.
he was my big running buddy. He did tons of 5 and 10Ks with me, and in fact, it's probably super weird, but I'm doing it anyways. I have a picture on my desk of two of my pups that I lost, and you'll see the one picture. He's wearing the medal from our race, and he's the happiest. Like he was so proud in that moment to wear his medal. He was like, "Yeah, I did it. I ran
Yes.
a race."
Oh my God. Yes, I'm so sorry for your loss. Like, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, you mentioned your family, and family is often a huge part of who we are. And can you share a story of a tradition with your family that's particularly meaningful to you? Like, yeah.
My husband and I host like every holiday. So every holiday is at my home and surrounded by family. And I think I love personally just getting to host the holidays in our home and create that warm and comfortable and inviting situation for people. I am a crazy Christmas person, like
Oh, wow. Yes, your
crazy Christmas
favorite.
person. Yeah. I put up 5 Christmas trees every year. Like it's to a really intense level.
Mhm.
So Christmas is probably one of my favorites. And we have lots of little traditions that we've put into all of the holidays.
Mhm.
The day after Thanksgiving is the start of Christmas Palooza.
Mhm.
And that's when I start decorating, and my mom helps because she usually is staying out with us for the holidays. And so we have like a whole day situation on that Friday after Thanksgiving that we put on obnoxious Christmas movies, make my husband incredibly like annoyed with the nonstop, and we're putting up all the trees and all of the things. And then we have, our traditions that align with, the holidays themselves. Like I have to have mimosas and cinnamon rolls on Christmas morning. Like I have to.
Yeah.
It's not
Oh my
Christmas
God.
morning if I don't have a
Yeah.
mimosa and a cinnamon roll. Like,
Uh, on my last podcast, we talked about, yes, about traditional, not traditional, but like what kind of celebration like my guest loves. And he answered that it's Thanksgiving.
oh,
Yes, and you told about Christmas. Like, yeah,
yeah.
yes, it's true. Yeah, and like, what book has had the most profound impact on your life, either personally or professionally, and why?
Um, so there's two books that I probably reference the most when I talk to people because I just feel like I could really resonate with the messaging in them. So one of them is Emotional Intelligence 2.0, Travis Bradbury, Jean Greaves. Um, I'm a huge believer in the importance of emotional intelligence. I believe it's Daniel Goleman who says like it's both learned and learnable. So like your mind is not in this locked mindset if you don't want it to be. If you want to grow your mindset, if you want to push your brain, you absolutely can. Your brain is a muscle like other muscles in your body, and you can absolutely learn and enhance these skills. And I think this book is just written in a way it's super easy to follow, but it gives you really practical tips that if you want to improve in one of the 4 competencies of emotional intelligence, it gives you practical tips that you can implement in your life. And I've used it with a lot of leaders and a lot of my mid level managers. And it's something that has resonated with all of them in both their personal and professional lives. So that's one I always lean back to it. I have my copy like lives in my home office because I touch it and I look at it, and I just always like to do that. Another one that I really love is Extreme Ownership. And I'm blanking on the name of the two authors. I think one is Leaf Babin, but I could be getting that incorrect. But it's written by two gentlemen who are prior military individuals, and they talk about having the importance of leadership at the top and starting with just taking ownership in everything that you do as a leader. And I really enjoy their storytelling from both their experiences serving overseas, but how they translate that into how they coach businesses and leaders. And just a lot of it resonated with me, and the importance of just taking ownership and accountability in yourself as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to placing blame to other people. Like, what could you do differently? Like,
Right.
if your employees failed to execute something, is
Mm-hmm.
that their failure of execution, or is it your failure as a leader in that you didn't communicate the expectations clearly enough? You didn't communicate the why clearly enough.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't communicate the deadline clearly enough. And a lot of times, if you really step back and you dissect a situation in that way,
Mm-hmm.
9 times out of 10, you're going to be like, oh, like I didn't communicate the expectation.
Right.
I didn't give them the why. I didn't give them a deadline. And then it's like when they don't execute it, like how can you got to look to you,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you got to start with you, and you got to
Yeah.
start with the standard that you hold yourself to, and
Mm-hmm.
how you, everything you say and communicate to your team. So those two books have both been ones that I often refer back to when I'm talking to people. I think they're great books.
Yes, and first book, I love it too, and I've read it many, many years ago. Like I think you too, and everything you mentioned, it's really true about like emotional intelligence and about our brain and about like everything what happens with us, like humans, and it's so interesting. Like technology, like is developing every day, but we are like a human. We are the same because physically and like what happens with our brains are the same. We didn't change. Yes, yeah.
I think with technology growing as much as it is, and AI growing as much as it is, I think
Hmm.
the need for people to learn and develop and enhance their soft skills becomes so important.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yes, because we can save ourselves to be a human. Yes, it's true.
Yeah, human
Eh,
connection won't go away regardless of how amazing technology is. There will still be
right.
the need for people to connect and interact. And I think our soft skills will become even more important in future years.
Yes. And if we mentioned technology, I have three last questions in my podcast, and it's the same questions for the like every guest. And
Okay.
first about technology, what was the last thing you asked ChatGPT or Claude or I don't know, maybe Microsoft Copilot? I don't know.
Yeah. I was working, actually yesterday, I was working with Copilot. I was working on an agenda for
Mhm.
in our consulting business, we host two conferences for our clients. And I was working on crafting kind of like a creative a workshop. And I wanted like a really great, catchy paragraph to summarize this workshop that we plan to
Mhm.
execute. And I was asking it to like, I was like, here's like a sentence. Now beef it up, like make it
Right.
better. Cause like my brain is not working this afternoon and I don't have the words. So I was playing around with it to help me work out an agenda.
Ah, great. Second question is tell your favorite quatrain or lyrics and explain why exactly you choose it and love it.
So, okay. So I'm a music person, but like if you heard my playlist is kind of confusing because it's all over the place. There is no specific genre that exists in my world. You could be listening to like some really cool like pop music and then it goes into like hard alternative. Like it gets really confusing. Um, I don't know that I don't know that I just have one, if I'm being honest with you.
Mhm.
I really, because again, my tastes, my preferences are so all over the board. Really, it's I yeah, and I'm terrible. I'm terrible with the names of artists and the names of
Uh-huh.
songs. My
Yeah,
husband likes to play
the
this
same
game.
with me. The same with me.
Oh, he loves to play this game where he'll hear some music like in a
Yeah.
Instagram reel and he'll be like, "Babe, who sings this?" And I'm like, "You know I don't know the answer to that question."
Yeah.
I'm like, "I don't know why
Yes,
you keep asking
absolutely.
me."
Yes, the
Um,
same with me about the actors. I know
oh,
them, like I like, but sometimes I cannot answer the answer who is like, yes, I know he was on this movie, on this movie, on this movie, like, yeah, I know the name, like, oh my god, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I could sing the whole song, or at least part of the song, and still not be able to tell you who the artist
yeah,
is
who,
or what the name of the
yeah,
song is. I'm terrible.
absolutely.
It is truly like, and my husband's a huge music person, and so he just finds
Oh,
it, I think, borderline offensive that I'm
oh my
this
god,
terrible at it. I'm
oh my
like,
god.
like after 18 years of marriage, like please stop asking me who the artist is. Like I don't know. I don't know.
Yes, it's why you are with me, because
Yeah,
it's why
you'll
you're
tell
with
me.
me, like, yes, you
Yeah.
tell me, yeah, it's
Yeah.
true.
I'll remind you how old you are. You tell me who the artist is. This is the
Yes.
compromise that we entered into.
Absolutely. Yes. And like the last question is called Ask the Next Guest on my podcast. Here's how it goes. Every guest gets to throw a question at the next guest, and I believe it adds a unique touch, allowing the previous guest to pose a question to the next one. Michael Smith was my wonderful guest, and he passed on his question to you.
What is the one piece of feedback they give to learning leaders, right, that no one's willing to share?
I think that they're not willing to share. Gosh, this is a good one. This one's making my brain go really quickly. I feel like I want to take it back to our discussion on this disconnect that I think that exists between shareholders in business and learning leaders. And I think that there's just a disconnect that learning leaders are, to use your words earlier, like where's their, proving their value. Like we always have to, like many leaders have to prove their value. They get this feedback of like, well, prove your ROI,
Mm-hmm.
prove this, prove that you did this to the company. And like, if you can't, like, here's your feedback, like, well, that's a cute idea, but I'm not seeing how that gives me the ROI. I'm not seeing how that does this and that. And I think it's just a struggle in that space and in that way. And I think learning leaders are constantly getting that feedback of like, did you prove your ROI? Like, did you make an impact? Like, did your program actually mean anything? And I think it's really challenging to have like, how do you always prove that learning had an ROI? Like, you can't always directly correlate learning to a line item. But I think that you can, over time, improved culture, improved retention. Um, I think there's other things that you can point to, but I feel like that's a lot of feedback that learning leaders get is prove your value.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Yes.
see, I don't see how this, I don't see how this helps. I don't see how this, and then they're kind of like trying to like figure out this way of how do we provide the learning that from all the books and the articles and, to use soft skills as an example. Okay, well, we know like there's so many articles out there about the importance of
Mm-hmm.
soft skills and in
Right.
our society right now. But it's kind of one of those areas. I mean, it's got soft in the title, like where I think shareholder level leaders kind of turn their nose at it a little bit because they're like, well, that's great, but like, how does that contribute to the bottom line?
Right. Yes. Thank you for sharing. And it's
Yes.
your turn to ask
Oh,
the next guest about something.
okay. So I would say tell us a moment in your personal or professional life that resulted in the biggest impact on who you are as a learning and development leader.
Great. Yes, thank you. I will ask my next guest and we'll see. We'll see. And Jen, it's like we've done, and it's been an enlightening conversation today, and your insights into leadership development, especially within the legal industry. It was very interesting for me and like have given me so much to think about. And I particularly appreciate your thoughts on, like, everything what you are talking about, and the importance of leadership development. And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with me and with my listeners today. Yes, thank
No,
you.
thank you. It was a pleasure. I enjoyed our conversation so much, and thank you so much for having me.
Yes, and to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. And remember, new episodes of Love People Technology Learning drop every Tuesday, so make sure you've subscribed and stay connected. And until we meet again, take care, stay curious, and continue shining brightly. Bye.